what's about to happen to you. You leave now.
Some consider these traits to be toxic, such as undesirable in the men of today. We consider these traits such as these not only to be desirable, but to be appreciated and celebrated. Welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, hosted by and La Reina Creole. Welcome to the safe space for the toxic male.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Reina Creole, and of course, with me is a positive fandom. And this, of course, is the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, where we appreciate the heck out of all you toxic men out there doing the darn masculine thing and proud of the testosterone that you have. So we appreciate the heck out of you for just being you. So I know we've been gone for a little while, but we're back, and you have had an absolutely fabulous time away, haven't you, my dear?
I have had a fabulous time away. I've been in London. I went over there for Star Wars Celebration. I did a lot of sightseeing. I got to spend a lot of time with my bestie, Russ Whitfield, in the UK. So it has been an incredible trip away. But I am glad to be back here in the States.
Oh, well, glad you're back. Glad you're back safe. Glad you're back here, and glad we are back doing the show. So excited. So excited. Well, as you know, as you both know, the summer box office is starting to, crank back up again, heat back up again. And one guy who we have portrayed on this show, featured in the show before, has a film coming out, and he is the kind of person that if he's in a movie, it has so much star power. And of course, we are talking about Tom Cruise. But look at that first line, the last movie star standing. And maybe this is just me, and I'd like to know what your opinion is on this too. It never occurred to me that we would hear that phrase, the last movie star. What do you think of when you hear that phrase?
Well, there's a lot that goes into making somebody a movie star, and all of these elements have somewhat, or at least appear to have become derailed over the past maybe 10 years, even. Things that we would naturally expect. We just aren't getting a lot of these natural expectations anymore. Some of those things have to do with these movie stars' images. And I think that a lot has changed for stars in Hollywood, also for musicians, where there's just a different type of image we have of them. They always made sure that we saw the best of these stars, that we always got responses from them that were positive, really just kept things in check in regards to image. Image was important for the studio because they knew that that people would go and want to see these stars in the theater. They would spend money to do this. And the image sometimes was the most important thing above everything else. It didn't really matter a lot of times what the truth was. They just wanted you to kind of enjoy this image about the star, this kind of reverence that they would put around them. And it really didn't matter whether that particular movie star had anything to do with that image. The publicity was to push the star as if they were, sort of this incredible person, irrelevant as to their personalities or how difficult they might have been to work with. It just didn't matter. They wanted that star to have an appearance that was like gold. And it worked for a very, very, very long time, Lorena.
Yeah. And Interesting dovetail into what you just said. Here from Movie Web, the biggest movie star of every decade for the past century. Now, before I actually get into that one a little bit, just look at this Cambridge Dictionary definition of movie star: a very popular and successful movie actor.
Yes, that is true. And this is something that, you can't, it doesn't just happen on its own. It takes a lot of people in the Hollywood and let's say in the production machine for a person to become a movie star. It's rare. It's rare that you become a movie star outside of that. I mean, the days that we live in now, people can become famous, but they're not necessarily a movie star. There are certain elements about being a movie star that not everybody has. And if you do find someone who has it, you try to get them into the movies, but even then, that's not a guarantee. But
Mm-hmm.
there are some other elements about it that I would add to that definition. And that is really just that someone who can bring people to see a film, whether they pay for it or not, people will watch it. And that's one of the most important elements of being the star. You can be an icon,
Mm-hmm.
you can be someone who had an impact in the movies, but usually the star is the person who can bring in the draw, bring people to see a movie, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's not in a genre they like, they'll show up for the movie. And so I think that's very interesting that in an individual, and Lorena, you and I grew up during this time,
Mm-hmm.
if Arnold Schwarzenegger was in a film, there was a bunch of people who would go and see it, and it did not matter what the film was about. They were going to the theater to see that film. Um,
Right.
and so that's what I consider a movie star, because you can pull in people to do things outside of their comfort zone. And I'd say Tom Cruise has done that so many times I can't even count. Maybe one of the first times that I've seen him do that was the Fourth of July film, but the second time I saw him, I'm not in the correct order, Lorraine, so I apologize.
It's all right. It's all right.
The second time I saw him do that was Rain Man. And I wasn't, am I saying the right? I am saying the right one, right? With Dustin Hoffman. And
Yes, that's Rain Man.
I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't expecting anything like that, because this is at the height of like Tom Cruise's coolness. And there was a heavy stigma associated with people who had special needs. There was, it's the truth. I'm not making
Mm-hmm.
this up. There was a heavy stigma at that time if you were a person who had special needs. And I didn't even understand what the film was about. Of course, the film was about brothers who love one another, but I didn't understand this film, but I went to see it because Tom Cruise was in it. Um, and I think you can go on and on. Jerry Maguire, not at all what I thought Tom Cruise would be in. Um, a love story. He can be romantic. Now, all of a sudden, there are all these different sides to Tom Cruise, but then he goes ahead and does it again. And here, it's funny, the title, Unpacking His Mission Impossible. I have to tell you, Lorena, Tom Cruise has a very interesting history as an actor, as a movie star, but he
Mm-hmm.
also, on his own volition, took some of the responsibility of what it meant when he chose this lifestyle. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that anybody who can make a film that draws $1 billion, and let's be honest, I went and paid for that movie twice. I saw that film twice in the theater. I didn't have to do that. I could have waited till it streamed at home, but I said, no, let me look at some of these flying scenes. Then I found out he did them. You and I talked
Mm-hmm.
about this, and I'm like, he did this? Oh my God. Another reason why he's so amazing. But um, a lot of the responsibility I think he's finding now that this sort of publicist and a lot of this stuff is kind of disappearing, or perhaps is not as reliable, he's taking
Right.
the responsibility of that. And it's a lot of work. It's a full-time job. And we're going to talk
Mm-hmm.
more about that. But anybody who could make $1 billion today, you are a movie star.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And granted, adjusted for inflation, look at some of these movie stars like Marilyn Monroe, aka Norma Jean. Her name attached to a movie, boom, it's gonna make money. She was
Yes.
just, she was just the draw. Like, what movie is that? Okay, is Marilyn Monroe's in it? Okay, I'm gonna sit down and watch it. They have like this draw. Charlie Chaplin, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Charlie Chaplin was absolutely remarkable. Of course, he's British, and
Hmm.
he happened to come upon, it's an extension of vaudeville. If I were to really describe what his tramp character is, feels like
Hmm.
an extension of the vaudeville era, which was still very popular in the 1920s. Like that was a
Yes.
big performance stage in practically every country, but he put it on screen and his face, I mean, he was such a talented actor, an incredible acrobat. Truly, an incredible talent. And he he was funny. This was he was a comedian, but then he also made you cry.
Hmm.
Just really a whole bunch of talent there, but you could tell he paid his dues somewhere on the stage somewhere. He worked his ass off for many years and
Hmm.
got the chance to be this character. And from what I understand, Lorena, people copied him. There was more than one tramp style star out there for many years, but
Hmm.
no one will ever forget Charlie Chaplin. And even when they wanted him to do talkies, so to speak,
Yeah.
I don't know whether he started to talk and he says that people didn't want to hear what he had to say because he was political, Lorena. He was political, but even his movie The Dictator, which was like a comedy and kind of a joke on everything, no one fully knew what was going on over there at the time. But let's
Hmm.
just say that even he felt he had to bring attention to it. And it was truly an artistic film. Who knew how true what was happening over there was reflected in his parody of the
Hmm.
horrors of what was there. So I think
Right.
that's something that's very ironic, that sometimes these art forms can speak volumes without completely unbeknownst to him, but the talent that he had
Hmm.
certainly was something that everybody recognizes. Everybody wants this. Everybody wants the fame of Charlie
Hmm.
Chaplin because he added not just comedy and making things funny, but we can't ever forget his impact on movies. Essentially, it's forever there. Certainly something that is the foundation for so many of us when we think about early films.
Absolutely. He's I almost want it, well, I will say, it's like he's the first to me, he's the first bona fide movie star when it comes to Hollywood. And then of course you have Clark Gable.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Classic film. He will always be Brett Butler. Of
yes,
course, you'll see him in other films. He again in the golden age of Hollywood, 1930s. You had him,
yes,
Joan Fontaine. Oh my
yes.
gosh.
And she had a sister by the name of Olivia de Havilland, who was also in, of course, Gone with the Wind,
Mm-hmm.
playing I guess Scarlett's. Not that Scarlett could really ever have competition, but let's just say her cousin or whatever, that woman
Uh-huh.
who was kind of in the way of her being with the guy she wanted to be with. But yeah, Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine both were actually very popular actresses. But yeah, Joan Fontaine. I haven't seen as I've actually seen Suspicion, which they mention here. I've seen her in Eyre. I've seen her in Rebecca. I had no idea that her roles were as impactful. Even after watching Turner Classics and seeing all of these films, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize that she was the epitome of the 1940s star and maybe one of the highest paid stars at the time. Who knew? She and her sister, she and her sister were incredible rivals at the time. One always wanted to be the more popular star than the other, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was really interesting. You can see it here in the article. But who would
Mm-hmm.
have guessed these two very talented sisters dominating the box offices of the 1940s? Yeah, and the every film that Joan Fontaine has made is spectacular. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess there is something to her star quality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, we said Marilyn Monroe,
Ugh,
nineteen
mhm,
fifties.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you don't even have to say anything about her. She could do drama and comedy, at the just in 1 second, she could switch them up. There was there's a number of things that I kind of loved that she did, and she was in a movie where, she and her friends were looking for dates for husbands, and this man she was on a plane, she's sitting next to this man says, "Can you read?" She says, "No, I don't have my glasses on." And he's like, "Oh, you don't have it?" She says, "Well, you know what they say, men don't make passes at girls that wear glasses." And it's like it's like this. Only she could deliver this line, Lorena. Like this was
Mhm.
talent. She just had this pure talent, that was amazing. And it's hard to find someone who has that. Really, just a fun star. She was funny,
Mhm.
beautiful. I mean, she just was the complete package. A lot of fun to watch. Very entertaining. The world's maybe first real sex symbol, posing nude for Playboy, the first Playboy centerfold. She was a lot of firsts, maybe defining what the modern, female, movie star would become to be like.
Exactly. Exactly. And of course, oh my gosh, Julie Andrews. I love this actress. She has just been in so many things, and we talk about movie stars. The fact that her, of course, she burst on the scene in the 1960s. She's been in several movies ever since, and she has a second life in doing voiceovers
Yes.
in animated films. So the Queen in Shrek 2 and the other Shrek movies, that was Julie Andrews. Also, I think she was also Gru's mother in Despicable Me. And she's so not very sweet in that. And I remember an interview where she talked about that. She's like, yes, it's so opposite of what I am. But having her name attached to it, even kids who didn't know who she was just like, wow, she's been around for for that long. So yeah, she had so much star power, and still does.
She had an extensive, theater and musical career. In addition to movies, she was a dancer, a singer. She was that total package of a movie star, for that era. And we've all seen pretty much every single movie she's ever made, and heard every single song she's ever sang. So,
Mhm.
and they're still playing The Sound of Music, and
Oh,
uh,
it's classic.
it is a classic. She was on Broadway. The part she played Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady, and of course,
Mhm.
um, Audrey Hepburn played it in the movie version. But it was Julie Andrews who made the role, popular originally. So here it says that she had, won a Tony nomination for that. And
Mhm.
that's when her career really took off. But, certainly Mary Poppins, I can't imagine
Yes.
without Julie Andrews in it. And she also played Victoria, where she kind of was like a woman who dressed as a man. And
Mhm.
and it was a lot of fun to see, how people were kind of questioning, well, is she a man or a woman? It was like very, very funny, very daring at the time it was made. What a great time to be a movie star, to be able to do things like that.
Absolutely. And let's get to this one here. Harrison Ford in the 1970s.
Yeah, I definitely agree with this, and maybe a little bit into the 80s too, because
I would agree.
he was, the I can't remember all the films, but let's say he was in a lot of those, Clear and Present Danger films. He's made so many films. I don't know how many films this man has made, but he was in so many, starring roles. Of course, here's him as, the role of Han Solo in Star Wars, but he also played in, I think it was called American Graffiti. I think he was in that one too. I could be
He
wrong.
was in American Graffiti, yeah,
And
before
he
he
was,
was in Star Wars, and
yes,
then, of course,
yes.
the Indiana Jones franchise.
Yeah, Blade Runner, The Fugitive was the one that
Oh,
I,
yes, The Fugitive.
and I remember, it was like he was a one-armed man, and And it was a well-known television show, but of course, this is the film adaptation of it where he
Mhm.
played that role so well. But he continued on to do other roles after that, and it became a point where he was kind of the go-to person. He played in a movie, I think it was with Anne Heche. I think it's him. That even surprised me. It was like a romance movie. And I was like, wow, Harrison Ford has still got it. But to be honest with you, he never lost it. Um,
No,
I think that he just still has that quality of you wanting to kind of like get his number and maybe get a little close to him. So he has this appeal about him, which has never seemed to leave him, even as an older man.
absolutely, absolutely. Even with him in movies like Air Force One
Yes.
later on in his career.
Mhm.
And another movie where we talk about it's the star power that draws you in, and then you just see how versatile they are. A movie called Witness.
Yes, oh, that was so good with Kelly McGillis. Oh,
That was
so
awesome.
good.
I mean, I mean, I was a kid living in Philly. It's like, guess what? Harrison Ford is like out shooting, footage. They're
Wow.
like, "What? Really?" And yeah, so to see him in Witness, it was if you wanna see a great romantic crime drama, go watch Witness. He is amazing. Absolutely, absolutely amazing in
Mhm.
Witness. And of course, we have Robin Williams, another one.
Yes. And of course, I particularly remember a lot of his films, but one thing I do remember about him, and you remember this too, Lorena, is the comic relief that he used to do with Billy Crystal and Whoopi Goldberg. There was one other
Mhm.
person, maybe, where they used to do comic relief every year, and I think it was it an AIDS benefit? Was comic relief AIDS benefit?
Yeah, comic relief was.
And they
Mhm.
were kind of doing this when people didn't want to even talk about AIDS.
Right.
And, he was known for his incredible stand-up. I remember him in The Fisher King or something about GARP. I could be maybe I'm not saying that.
The World According to Garp, that
Yes.
was one, and, but I'm always gonna love him as Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes. Hello. I
She's
mean,
like putting her boobs out.
mhm. And in Dead Poets Society, "Oh Captain, My Captain," when he played in that movie, stunning.
Yes.
And of course, Good Will Hunting with
Mhm,
the young Ben Affleck and I can't remember the other guy's name, but what incredible roles he's done. And this is just scratching the surface. I remember him in Mork and Mindy. And
I
I thought
remember
he was
seeing
a real
those
alien.
reruns.
I thought it was really an alien. I mean, I was just a kid, but I was like, this is obviously how an alien would act if they
Mhm,
weren't from Earth and they don't know how things are on Earth. And Mindy would say, well, no, Mork, this is what you do. And it was just like, it was wonderful to see the pleasure that they had of him just kind of, having fun with his character,
mhm,
and just reeling us all in to his performance. He always gave a wonderful performance.
mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And even to go back to, the second life that we talk about with animated features,
Yes.
Aladdin,
Yes. Yes. That was a
that
big
was
deal.
huge sell. You're just like Robin Williams as the genie, and literally that was like all his his movie. It's like it in people that knew him, people that grew up with him, and people even kids who didn't know him from his movies knew him as the genie in the animated version of Aladdin. So another great one. Of course, we have Julia
Mhm.
Roberts. You guys see the theme that's going on here. There's like all these movies where it's like Julia Roberts is in it, from Pretty Woman to one of my favorites, Erin Brockovich.
Yes, she was fantastic in that. She really was able to play pretty much anything. I think that she really kind of became the modern actress, what a modern
Mhm,
actress would be like, let's say during our lifetime, if I'm saying that correctly. And she
mhm,
never missed a beat. She always had dignity. She's never gotten into any scuffles or any kind of trouble. Um,
Hmm.
Julia Roberts was just a class act, even though it's true she's playing a prostitute in the movie.
Yes, you will.
um, it became, maybe her most popular role. And, I think that it's just a testament to what she's capable of. She could probably play anything, but she's still acting, like she's still working actress. What was the film she did with George Clooney, Lorena? Is it something like Second Time Around or
Yeah, a recent one. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Like their kids were getting married. They were divorced, but I think their daughter was getting married. Yeah, that one.
and
And one where, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, my dear.
she was good in it. I saw it.
Yeah, I missed that one. I don't know how I did, but I saw the trailer that I saw for it. I thought it was funny to see these two, together, two huge movie stars, seeing her, and again, Second Life in voice. If you've seen the movie Bullet Train, and you should if you haven't seen it, she plays Brad Pitt's character's handler. You don't see her, you just hear her, but just the fact that her voice
Oh, yeah,
alone is
yeah.
in that movie. Yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah. Yeah, that was a star-studded film, but having her in there, not even her face, just her voice, you just know she's got that star power. And we have Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, we do, don't we? I loved him in Lord of the Rings. I loved him in Troy. He played I think Paris, I think, who had the affair with Helen.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
it was like I was like, "Oh my god, of course she had an affair with him." Oh god, he was so good in that. He's so good in everything. I just totally loved him as an actor. I still love him as an actor. Of course, he was in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes,
Um,
he was.
yeah. So, but everybody knows him as Legolas, which is the picture there. He looks good as
Mhm.
a blonde and as a brunette. Um, I can't find anything wrong with him.
No, there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. It's like he's the hottest elf in Lord of the Rings, and, you know,
Yeah.
between that role that he played to the role that he played as, Will in, Pirates of the Caribbean, onto I haven't seen it, but I heard Carnival Row,
Mhm.
that miniseries, I heard that he's very, very good in that. But yeah, 2000s, all you saw was Orlando Bloom, Orlando Bloom, Orlando Bloom, and this is one of mine that is my personal favorite.
And, this one's a very interesting story, Lorena, because of course he came from a Hollywood family, or let's just say people in the business. His family was in the business.
Yes.
And, he was someone who in his 20s had what I would call a lot of missteps. And if it was the internet age, everyone would know about it. But at the time, it was a tabloid era. And so it was just in the tabloids, and everybody knew that unfortunately he had some substance abuse issues. And he struggled with it. Lorraine, it had to be about 20 years. It had to be about 20 years. And the people were like, he threw his career away, he threw his life
Mhm.
away, he'll never amount to anything. And then he suddenly turns his life around. This might be one of the best success stories of recovery I think is we've ever seen.
I would have to wholeheartedly, agree with you. I was living in Los Angeles, I remember, around when it seemed like every story was Robert Downey Jr. getting busted for, something that was drug related, and I remember seeing on television where I think the Culver City Police, I think, had found him, but he wasn't that far from where I work, and I'm like, "This
Mm.
is surreal," and it's just like, I really hope that he would get his life together, because this was a movie star that pretty much that we, like, in a way, grew up with, seeing him and his buddies in the same films, and thankfully, Jon Favreau convinced the studio to take a chance on Robert Downey Jr. as, Tony Stark. as Iron Man. And from then on, it was just like the sky's the limit. So his story is like, not only is he a movie star, but a testament to what you can do when you truly turn your life around, you know. So
Absolutely. And much of the success of Marvel can be, pretty much is on his shoulders, if you will, along with perhaps the other gentleman who plays Captain America, Chris Evans. But
mhm,
much of the success of Marvel is due to Robert Downey Jr. He made us all fall in love with Iron Man. I fell in love with that character. So only certain people can do that with a role like he can. Certainly, he's just so talented, and we're lucky that he's been able to overcome his vices.
absolutely, absolutely. I will never forget. I was like at work, and one of my work buddies, he's like, "You have to go see Iron Man." I'm like, "You mean that D level one in Marvel Comics? I don't. Why the heck should I go watch that movie?" He's like, "No, you have to see this movie. Tony Stark is your kind of guy. You will like this movie." I'm
Mm.
like, "Yeah, okay, sure, whatever." And then I saw it. I'm like, "Okay, now I see what they're talking about. All right, gorgeous partier. He's got gorgeous suits.
Yes.
Basically an arms dealer, which I was kind of working for at the time. That's why I keep calling it Stark Industries."
I love that you
But
say
just the bravado. Um, and you know what? We should probably have a watch party for this because, quite frankly, this is the most toxic male movie that Marvel has put out with, and I don't think they've been able to. No, no, I take it back. Probably Winter Soldier, but it all started with this one, without a doubt. So, yeah, going through all of these movie stars through history basically builds the case of what we're talking about when we say, movie star. And if we go to this article from IndieWire, who says Tom Cruise, the last movie star, question mark, hardly, but no actor could copy his career. So what do you think about that?
Well, what I was going to say is that there's a certain number of things that Tom Cruise has done. I'm certainly not saying that other actors haven't done it, but there are very specific things that Tom Cruise does to make sure he still has a career. And one of the things that he did very early on in his career was to make sure that he would fly overseas and go to all of the international film festivals to promote his movies. At a time in
Hmm.
the 80s, that really just wasn't done. It was only, European films or foreign films that would be at huge
Hmm.
festivals like that. But he made it something that would be the norm, even to a point where when he was in a film and it premiered in a city, he made sure that he would be there for the premiere of the film, adding to a lot of the excitement. One example of this was last year in 2022.
Hmm.
Tom Cruise managed to make sure his film Maverick was the premiere film at Cannes, and it was a big deal. He kind of flew in. I wouldn't be surprised if he flew in on a fighter jet, knowing Tom
Hmm.
Cruise. The film premiered, and it was an astounding success, a big success for the film, but an even bigger success for Tom Cruise, who knew that this
Right.
was a big deal and really propel his film forward. Another thing too is since he's already in a position where he's become known as an
Hmm.
action star, one of the most important things he does in his films is that he does his own stunts. Now, Lorena, you remember when we first heard about this, I thought
Hmm.
he was insane. I thought he was crazy. How could you do your own stunts in films? This seems a little crazy. And not only does he do his own stunts, but he makes sure that a good portion of the stunts that are done are um, actually not CGI based stunts,
Hmm.
legitimately, practical effects. You know,
Right.
so it becomes even more dangerous. He doesn't have to do that. Nobody has to do that in 2023. But Tom Cruise continually does this, just like what we were talking about in Top Gun. He had those other actors sign waivers,
Right.
waivers, So he had to make sure that they were doing practical flying. It had to be
Mm-hmm.
real. It wasn't going to please the audience to see anything that was fake. And you know how critical people have become of CGI and everything
Mm-hmm.
that you can do with it. It's not everybody's favorite. And in this particular
Right.
case, he knew it had to be authentic. In fact, the point of his character being present, and that was the only way they could do the mission. I'd say it's the same for this film and the film's success. And the final thing that I would say that a lot of people can't copy is that he's kept up his looks. Tom Cruise still looks really good. I mean, I was a
Mm-hmm.
teenager when Tom Cruise first started acting. Maybe I wasn't even a teenager. Maybe I was like maybe 12 or even 11. And I remember this good looking young man starring in things like, what was he in? Uh,
Which one?
with what's that girl's name? I can't remember her name, but it was a fairy tale thing. He was in Taps, first of all. And then
Oh, A Few Good Men.
he was in that, and he was also in like this fairy tale story. You know the
Why
one,
am I drawing a blank?
but you know the
Which
one, right?
fairy tale? I'm trying not to go to IMDb. I feel,
No, it's okay.
I feel
Really,
like, oh, it's IMDb.
no.
A
It's
fairy
not
tale.
Labyrinth, but something like
Shoot.
yes,
Yeah,
that film.
I'm gonna. Oh, Labyrinth. No, was he in
No, I think it was but it was something like Labyrinth, but
Labyrinth? Going it. Yeah. See, this is driving me nuts. I'm gonna have to
no,
find it.
I'll just go ahead and
I'm gonna
okay,
have to find it
okay.
because I'm picturing it in my head.
It's called darn, I had to really go back to look for that Legend. So
Okay. Yes,
yes,
I
and you're
remember
right.
that.
He was in Risky Business. He was in those films, but then he was in a movie like Legend, and it's kind of like that's very kind of like it's kind of nerdy. It's like
Hmm.
this fantasy film, where he's supposed to rescue this girl and it's not at all what I would call maybe about it's about somebody who wants to kill unicorns. It doesn't get any more like fantasy nerdy than that. So I just thought, he really kind of had this variety of roles at a young age. He was also in
Hmm.
Endless Love, although he wasn't the star in the film. But the point is that ever since 1981 to
Hmm.
2023, he still looks incredible. He's kept his body physically up to par. And we've seen other actors of his age who have not done that, and they still act, but he managed to keep himself fit. He still looks really good. He doesn't go for too much, like he'll let the camera be on him, but then he'll say,
Hmm.
"Okay, you got some good shots of me, but we can leave it alone at that." I think it's very important keeping up your looks after 40 years. There were some Hollywood actors who did that. I think Cary Grant definitely did that through the
Hmm.
years, acted from at least a 35-year career. You're lucky if you can do that, if your looks still hold up. And Tom Cruise is no exception. So it's very hard to be an actor in Hollywood in a place they always say it favors the youth, but I think it favors people who can keep themselves up. And it's hard to do that when you get older, but he seemed to do it. So that's some of the reasons why I think you can't copy his career. Those are some very important things that Tom Cruise has done that not everybody has been able to do.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, speaking of things that not many other people have been able to do you remember a film called
Yes.
Tropic Thunder?
Oh God.
Now, you have to be one heck of a movie star with this. One, so pulled into the character that two, by the time the credits roll and you find out it's Tom Cruise, you're like, you've got to be kidding me.
I
Not
couldn't believe it.
not to say that you can't believe he did it, but it was just like, I can't believe I didn't spot. I'm like, I couldn't believe I didn't know who that was. And without a doubt, I mean, granted, you had, Ben Stiller, you had Robert Downey Jr., you had oh my gosh, who's the other third guy? Oh, yeah, I said Ben Stiller, right?
Yeah, you did.
I
You did.
did. I did. I did. I think was Jack Black in this one? I can't remember. I can't remember if it was, but it's been a long time since I've seen Tropic Thunder. However, even with the headliners, the big star of this movie was Tom Cruise, basically playing like a cross between Scott Rudin and Ari Gold
Oh, it's
from
so
Entourage.
it's so good, and you could see the real person he was imitating in this role. This is a real person. It's not fake.
No,
He has this person's personality down to a T, and the attitude was just a remarkable. He's talented. Tom Cruise is talented.
oh my gosh, yes. Even him dancing at the end credits. Oh my it was just oh my gosh it was just too cool. Hey, how you
Hey,
doing, Katie?
John.
Good to see you, good to see you. But yeah, it's pure star power
Yeah, yeah,
that this that Tom Cruise was the guy who went and did that. And like you were saying, with the fact that he does so many of his own stunts, and with Top Gun, again, as you were saying, with Top Gun Maverick, made sure that all those actors had to take the same kind of flight training. So they would actually be able to connect with their characters and pull those flight scenes off so good that, seasoned fighter pilots were like, yeah, much more glamorous than what we remember, but pretty much they were like, I felt like that was, that was me.
yeah. He just has such incredible talent. So it is very hard to repeat what he's done. And as I said, a lot of what he's done is he's taken over a lot of the publicity for his films by being
Hmm.
a spokesperson, and
Right.
also taking over a lot of the publicity for his personal life, which he has taken some major hits about Scientology and stuff. Like, suddenly he's become the person who you have to, becomes the spokesperson or whatever it is for Scientology when we know that's not fair. Um,
Hmm.
that's his decision to believe in whatever he wants to. But, that became, it sort of became a point of contention for him, even though he
Right.
really didn't deserve it. This is his life. He can do whatever he wants to do with his life and have his own beliefs. So, but it was in an era where he could handle it. He seemed to be able to handle a lot of that. And maybe it's very specific that he kept a lot of things to himself. I wouldn't be surprised that he was less vocal
Hmm.
than a lot of other stars because he wants to have longevity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of longevity, we'll wrap up with some thoughts in this last article. This is actually from the New York Times by Wesley Morris, but we've got it archived over on the Wayback Machine because the New York Times likes to put stuff behind a paywall. We're out of movie stars. Whose fault is that? There are
It's
fewer films now that allow an actor to grow a persona and a Tom Cruise level of stardom. It's a crisis, and the movies know it.
Yeah, and we know that there's an oversaturation of films and television and stuff to watch, so that adds to the problem. The second problem is definitely publicity. With the studio systems kind of breaking down, the
Hmm.
publicity machines aren't there. And even when we do get publicity for an actor or for a movie, the publicity that comes out, let's say the trailers, do not reflect the movie that you're going to get. Like I've never seen this before in my entire life, but over the last 10 years, we've been seeing so many trailers that don't reflect, honestly, they're not honest trailers, or else we wouldn't have honest trailers, the YouTube channel, right?
Right.
They're not honest trailers. What they're advertising is not really what you're going to get. And as a result of this, it makes it more difficult to become a star and for people to come back to something and enjoy it. So, a lot of that promotion of the film does result in determining whether a movie is successful, but also whether a star
Hmm.
is successful. Another thing we don't see anymore are those magazines that you remember growing up, there'd be, I guess like People Magazine, but not People Magazine, the ones for if you're fans of, like Teen Beat and stuff like that. We don't
Right.
I don't really see those anymore, maybe once or twice, but they used to be everywhere. And it used to make you
Hmm.
excited about seeing these stars in the movies, but we're not really getting that anymore. Instead, we're getting articles that are really trying to make people feel guilty about stuff they shouldn't feel guilty about. So, I think part of the fault is really just the machine letting itself down by oversaturating the market, as I said. So there's
Hmm.
way too much competition, and everybody gets a film or a movie or a series. So it's not as, special or unique anymore. And then the publicity around individual stars is awful, but also those trailers don't reflect what you're actually going to get. So there's a lot of information out there
Hmm.
about entertainment that isn't really reflecting what people can get excited about.
Exactly, exactly. Very good points. And I'm sorry, I kind of faked y'all out. This actually tags onto what you were saying. This one from jacobin.com, intellectual property killed the movie star. And in this particular article, they're talking about how rather than having, movies around a star with that star power, you've got these intellectual properties like Marvel, like DC, where there's already an established built-in lore and people aren't coming to see who's starring in it. They're coming to see that intellectual property brought to the screen. So what do you think about that?
I think it's true. And I think oftentimes we don't have, for example, when Carrie Fisher played Princess Leia, no one knew who Princess Leia was in the general public. But her physical embodiment became what we know as what we have a reality of what Princess Leia looks like. So she took a role where no one really knew what this character looked like, and she made it her. She is
Hmm.
Princess Leia, where a character like Ahsoka Tano in Star Wars was already drawn, and the Rosario Dawson had to be changed to look like that character. So it's not
Hmm.
necessarily a Rosario Dawson that we're visualizing. We're visualizing an alien, and that's not a good example. But the point that I'm making is that we already had an idea of what that character would look like. So anyone who would play that would have to kind of fit this expectation of
Hmm.
what that character is supposed to look like. So it is true in regards to that. I think an example of the opposite, where a person became the character, and we'll always associate them with that, is Sylvester Stallone in Rocky, where he is Rocky Balboa. It's
Yes.
Sylvester Stallone. That's him. There is no other Rocky Balboa, nor will there ever be. It's always going to be Sylvester Stallone's likeness, and the same for Carl Weathers in
Hmm.
the movie as well. He's always going to be his main, I guess, competitor in the film, and there'll never be another
Hmm.
who will be that other competitor for Rocky Balboa. So um, you know, that's a little different. They originated the characters, if you will. So a lot of times when you can't originate the character, it can have
Hmm.
an effect over your success. But truth be told, Lorena, we just aren't getting the publicity promotions about how great these actors are anymore. In fact, a lot of times when we get that first article, the article is about, oh, look at how tough it's going to be for us to promote this show, rather than talking
Hmm.
about actor's ability, what a great actor this person is, how lucky we are to get this person in our franchise. Very rarely do we get articles like that anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, in a lot of ways, due to how the industry is right now and the way that that it's moved, the traditional movie star as we know it, yeah, I think Tom Cruise is the last one,
Yeah,
which in
it's
a way is a little sad. I'm sorry, my dear. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, you're right. It is a little sad. Please keep going. I'll save it.
Yeah, it is a little sad because it's the end of it's the end of an era, you know.
It is, and I think maybe the only other thing that might save it, it might be. At first, I thought maybe it would be video game
Mm-hmm.
adaptations. But so far, I don't know whether that's going to crossover. To be honest with you, I think if we looked at Harry Potter series this year, we've been talking about the movies, and I can't think of anybody than Daniel Radcliffe being Harry Potter, even though I knew they used to draw pictures. Like there were pictures of Harry Potter in the books, but
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to be Daniel Radcliffe for me. What about you?
Likewise, likewise. Um, I'm always going to see Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. I'm always going to see Emma Watson as Hermione. I'm always
Mhm.
going to see Rupert Grint as Ron.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I cannot believe I'm blanking on his name right now, which really irritates me since I am Slytherin, since we're both Slytherin. The actor who plays Draco Malfoy. It's like
Yes, yes,
I can't, Tom Felton. Oh my gosh, Tom
yes.
Felton. I can't see anybody else as him. So it will be interesting to see if there's a new breed of movie star, so to speak, and how that comes across. But in the meantime, Tom Cruise is still out there. Tom Cruise is still making movies to enthrall audiences. He's got a new Mission Impossible movie coming out this summer. I can't wait. I have to go back and watch the other ones. Cannot wait to see that. So we hope you guys are all excited about that as well. So once again, thank you so much for joining us and my wing woman without whom I could not do this show. Please let the folks know where they can find you.
Guys, you can find me on my channel, Positive Fandom, where I do all the parlay in the fandom. You can also find me with Lorena on the Burn Network, where we do Ladies of the PGS and a lot of other things as well. And you can always find me here on Lorena's channel, as well as the 1/6 Scale Man Network. And I'm going to be playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor at midnight tonight. Yep, I'm going to be live
Woo!
streaming Jedi Survivor. I can't wait. It's going to be, trust me, it's going to be a bumpy road, but I'm still excited. And that's where you
That
can find me. And thank you for having me, Lorena.
Oh, you are very welcome. You are very welcome. You're going to be streaming it to Twitch?
Yes, Twitch and YouTube, I think. No, actually just to YouTube.
It's to YouTube. Okay.
Yeah, I think you
Okay.
can only
Well,
do one or the other. I don't know why, but
okay. Well, that's right, because this and that you're on. And also by the time you guys see this on the replay on YouTube, go back to her channel and go watch her gameplay of Jedi Survivor. You do not want to miss that. And of course, you can find me here on Twitch, also on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Various live streams and videos with myself, with her joining me as well, along with all other possible guests and everything that come by my channel. You can find the both of us, of course, on the Burn Network for Ladies of the PGS. And you can also find me on the Dark Council every other Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Fatal J's channel. And you can find me dropping in the second hour, which is where I'm headed over to now, for the WDW Pro live show with WDW Pro, with Jonas Campbell, and with the motley crew of friends, so to speak, that drop into the show. So, of course, you can see me over there. So, thank you all so much for watching. Please do subscribe to Positive Fandom, subscribe to myself. Please hit that like button, and we will see you next time.
bye.
Bye.